Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with our friend Matt Weinglass, and we got all kinds of madness to talk about. Rapid reaction forces to stop protests and civil unrest, possible invasions of Venezuela, MSNBC-Ia is changing their name, all kind of stuff. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Matt Weinglass, and we got all kinds of stuff to talk about. He's with the Homeless Left on Rumble and now on YouTube, very quietly, at THL Presents. That's right, that stands for the Homeless Left, at THL Presents on YouTube. So make sure that you follow and subscribe and all that stuff on YouTube, and the same on Rumble, and share THL Presents, the YouTube show, and the Rumble, the Homeless Left. Share that on all your social media platforms. Let's get going. We got horrifying, frightening stuff to talk about. Let's start here. Here's something I find interesting. You know, I was browsing around the other day and I saw this article. Trump administration considers quick reaction force for protests. The Trump administration is looking at plans to set up a 600-person National Guard quick reaction force to deploy U.S. cities to quell protests or other unrest. Now, you notice they say it's the Trump administration. When you read the article, it's the Pentagon. Not saying that ain't the Trump administration, but here's what's weird. Doesn't that say quick reaction force for protests? I read the article, that's what it says, but they changed the name. Look at this. Quick reaction force for civil disturbances. You know, I did an article and I said, wait a minute, protest is an integral part of U.S. history, and there was the civil rights protest, there was a Vietnam protest. Why would the Pentagon need to stop? Now, you notice it said Trump administration, Pentagon is doing it for civil disturbances. Well, what the hell it said protest? We look down at it's planning to set up, listen to this, but when you read the article, there are plans to set up a National Guard quick reaction force to quickly deploy to U.S. cities to quell protests or other unrest. Well, it was the Trump administration, right? Well, let's read it further. Internal Pentagon documents, right? They're going to have weapons and riot gear and be on constant standby 24. You know, they're going to put one on the east and one in the west to be deployable in as little as 1 hour. Why did they change it to civil disturbances here? When what they're saying is protests,
yeah,
or other civil disturbances, and it's the Pentagon. You know, when I read all of that tomfoolery with what they're involved in, and then they call us conspiracy theories when we say, well, people are unhappy about genocide. There's probably going to be college protests and stuff, probably bigger protests. God only knows the economy's hanging by a thread, so that'll probably crap out, and then they're going to, you know, they're probably expecting that they'll steal everything that ain't nailed down again. And so we'll all, you know, be impoverished. I'm sure there'll be civil disturbances. Here's what I see. Let me shorten it up. They know there's civil disturbances coming because of their activities in dragging us down the road to hell. And they're planning on sending the military out to, I guess, beat the hell out of, shoot, and lock up people who have a right to protest their mismanagement and criminality. Matt.
Yeah, no, this is very concerning, and we see the language changing on the article, and I was probably instructed, top-down instructions at the Hill to make that very subtle adjustment. But the article itself, like you said, you brought it up, it's in there. We're talking about that protests now. We have been wired as a society, as a country. We've been wired now, programmed now to look at protesting as something that's dangerous. Words are violence. I mean, these are things that have been ingrained in us now. And bringing that Trump administration in, and this is not a conspiracy theory. This is how our country functions. This is how our government functions. You see Trump's administration in the headline, but no, Garland, you're absolutely right. This is the Pentagon. This is the military industrial complex controlling the actions and taking away more rights of the people. And by bringing the Trump administration in and making it that the headline that Trump's doing it. This is just so half the country that voted for Trump, that half is okay with this because they've been conditioned and specifically told that these protests are what's the problem is, and anything against Israel is what the problem is. And now they can leverage that for other things. And we always say that. We say that on our show. I know you say it all the time, Garland, that if it doesn't affect you now, it will next time, because if they take the right away from somebody that you don't care about, guess what? They're going to take it away from you next, and you're going to care about that, but by then it'll be too late. So that's what we're seeing unfold here in real time.
You know, during COVID, I remember watching Europe, and when the people were like, you know, in Germany and different places, and they were unhappy with the lockdowns, and they were dragging them away, beating the hell out of them. I'll never forget the truckers. The Canada truckers, and they were like, nah, you know, and when you talk to, like, they interviewed them and they were like, well, most of us are vaccinated, but we feel like the ones that aren't vaccinated shouldn't, you know, what the hell? And they were saying, you're in a truck by yourself for like 12 hours and 20 hours a day, for God's sake. Why you got to be vaccinated? Nobody's in a truck with you, right? This is crazy. And then the stuff came out where the truckers started saying, yeah, we pull up to the border, and when we get, I'll never forget that they said, and when we get to the border and we go to show them our stuff, they say, oh, you don't need to, it's on your phone. And when your truck pulls up to the border, it automatically reads. You didn't even know it reads it off of your phone. I don't know if you remember that. And the truckers were like, what the hell? And apparently they didn't know they had to download, when they downloaded the app or registered, whatever. Now, when they pull up to the border, it connects to their phone, it downloads whatever, and they're like, okay, we know who you are, go on through. And they were like, yeah, but we don't like this. And I'm like, yeah, that's the future, right? We were all during COVID saying that's the future there. They want to give you an app, and then everything happens. And then once the economy crashes, they say, we'll give you some digital money once a month, just enough to survive on with the app, as long as you do what we are told.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you brought up the truckers, because that was the moment of truth for the left to see if they were going to say something. And we told them, if you don't say something, it's going to be worked against you next time. And then, of course, we saw our friends on the right side of the populist movement that had that right. They got COVID right. They understood that mandates were wrong. And I want to be clear about those truckers. 90% of those Canadian truckers were vaccinated. They weren't protesting for themselves. They were protesting for their fellow Canadians and their fellow human beings around the world. That's what they were doing. There was like, and you mentioned the whole thing about going on, just knowing their identity and seizing their information, seizing their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Freezing if you donated to the cause, because they were out there in very freezing conditions and they needed help. If you donated, they locked your donate. They took it and they funneled it into their pockets. And everyone on the left was okay with that. They're like, oh no. And if you turned on the Daily Show at the time, they were going up there mocking those people on a channel that we used to think was the progressive young voice of the country, going up to Canada, mocking these people, calling them Nazis. I kid you not. I know people don't remember.
I remember.
And
remember
so
they
that
had
was
a flag.
The moment of truth. Yeah.
Remember they had they said, here's a Nazi flag, and they were like going down the road, or they saw a vehicle or something with a Nazi flag. They're like, there you go. There's a Nazi flag. And I'm like, I'm watching this thing, and there's like tens of thousands of people in some town where it's like 20 below, and they're singing and they're dancing and they're talking. They're not messing with anybody. They're playing music and you name it, right? And someone conveniently popped up with a Nazi flag, and they're like, aha, a single Nazi flag. They're all Nazis. And I thought, and I immediately thought to myself, you bastards put that Nazi flag up there. You know what I mean? It was a false flag with a Nazi flag. You know good and damn well they put that flag up there and said, aha, Nazi flag. They were like this, hey, where's the Nazi flag? It's in my trunk. Okay, go grab the Nazi flag, plant it over there so we get a good picture. Yeah. All right, there you go. Click. Oh my God, a Nazi flag.
Yeah. I remember talking to some of my colleagues here in LA about that during that time. And a lot of them, they weren't fully aware of what was going on. I go, hey, isn't that bizarre? Like I wanted to get them upset about this. And they were like, aren't those truckers up there? Aren't they all like Trumpers? I'm like, they're Canadian. What do you mean? Where did you get that from? What is that? What are you talking about? So this is the wiring that went down. They were very successful. Now, fast forward, 4 or 5 years later, you now have the other half of the country is now captured, and they're ready for digital IDs and punishing freezing your bank accounts if you do anything wrong, and words are violence, and protests are scary and they're dangerous, and you're a domestic terrorist. It's like, domestic terrorist, isn't that what you were called during January 6th? So it's like neither side has the principles or the functionality, the capability to apply principle when it's most important. And everyone knows principle is most important. It's essential to apply when it's inconvenient to do so. If you only apply it when it's convenient, then it's not actually principle.
Absolutely. Now, lots of other stuff to move on. Let's start here. We'll start with the little stuff. Well, there ain't no little stuff, but we'll start somewhere, and then we'll go on to Gaza and Epstein and other things. All right, next. MSNBC, as I call them, Msnbc-Ia, right? They were literally saying, we're an insurgent network. Insurgent? The network that tells us, hey, the CIA is telling you the truth. Don't push back against the government when they tell you to go take some medical procedure that you may have questions about. Don't question it. How dare you question it? You, sir, are a Nazi because you question the government, and they have the nerve to tell us that they're insurgents, and they're going to change the name from MSNBC to MSNBC. It's just going to mean something different. Now, for God's sake, you're going to have the same old putzes. The same old, hey, we now have former CIA officer so-and-so to come on and tell us what's happening. Your thoughts on this whole MSNBC crap?
Yeah, when I saw this, Garland, I was like, they're trying a rebrand that's so bad. I can't even imagine what was going on in that think tank room at the time when they're all like, oh yeah, does everyone agree? Oh yeah, this is great. I mean, we're talking about MS now. I mean, that, how many things can you make fun of that? It doesn't even flow off the tongue, in the sense that you're like, MS, what is that? That sounds like multiple sclerosis. What are you saying? How is it miss? Is it a feminine?
Now?
What are we talking about? I saw one make fun. There was one that said, "Oh, most surely no one watching." I love that one. That's a fun one. But like you were saying about, like, when they tell people what to do and tell people to get in line and pretend that it's a resurgence, pretend that they're fighting the man, we're breaking off from NBC. That's not what's happening. You guys put this whole really crappy campaign together, and you think you're going to sell it off to your audience, what's left of it, when you've gotten everything wrong. You got COVID wrong. You got Russiagate wrong. You got Ukraine wrong. You got Syria wrong. You are getting genocide wrong right now. Let's not forget Biden's dementia. You got that totally dead wrong. So the fact that you think that this is going to work, it's ridiculous. Garland, I want to add this. I was thinking, what does this remind me of when I saw the new ad? And I was like, they did this before, and I had to go back. I go, when did MSNBC try to brand something? This was way long ago. So I'm going to date this. Back in 2010, they tried they didn't change the name. It was MSNBC, but they were trying a new campaign where they were like trying to get more edgy and progressive. So they went with this slogan, lean forward. Do you remember that one?
Yes,
lean
I do.
Forward. And it was so ridiculous because you're like, what the hell does that mean? Lean forward. And I remember this picture. I'll never forget this. It was Keith Olbermann, who was barely hanging on there. They were about to replace him with Rachel Maddow at the time. And he was sitting in a desk, leaning back, looking bored as hell, leaning back. As it says on the ad, MSNBC, lean forward. And I go, that's not, he's leaning backwards. And what do you know? 2 to 3 months later, they canned him. So that was I had to go back to that. But that was, again, they've been doing this crap for years and years. They can't figure out why Joe Rogan has 10 times more the audience than they do. They don't know what they're doing, and then we have to listen to people like Joe Scarborough pretend that he's excited about the new change.
Oh well, you can turn on and find out how terrible October 8th was. Like they don't even know there's a genocide going on. It's like, hey, there's a genocide going on. Let's talk about October 8th. Do you condemn Hamas? You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, I gotta turn it, which I don't watch it, but every now and then, sadly, I go into some people's houses, friend or family members, and there's MSNBC, right? And I gotta watch these people pretend that there's not a genocide going on. Show me some Zionist lunatic on here making excuses for the genocide. Then Bibi Netanyahu comes to town, and they're not like, boo, Bibi Netanyahu, he's bad. They're like, yes, he came to town and he's in Congress. And then they interview some Zionist Congress member who tells us, yes, we're meeting with him and we're standing up for the integrity of Israel and blah, blah, blah. And I got to watch that, which I don't have to watch it. But you put that crap on. You can't rebrand that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that is what Joe Biden's fine. The guy's like soiling himself every day in the Rose Garden. And you're going to tell me he's perfectly fine. And now I got to watch a genocide. And you're going to be like, well, you know, I mean, something about October 8th and Hamas, whatever the hell. And you can't rebrand that. Just turn it off.
No, you can't. And then again, like just watching them try and defend this live on their real-time shows, like Joe Scarborough, like on his morning, I cannot believe that show is still on, This Morning Joe. And he's justifying this. And I can't get the image out of my head of him looking in the camera just a few years ago, talking about Joe Biden. This is the best version of Biden we've ever had. And it's just like, you're all you do all day is lie. And the thing he's still trying to hold on to today, as he's reporting this amazing new story about how the network is branching off from NBC, and we're so excited to be resurgence and all this stuff. You can see him just constantly just in this defensive mode, completely in a defensive mode of justifying that their network is actually doing news when it's not. It's not news. He knows it. They all know it. And they have to continue to pretend that they are allowed to report what's going on when no, they're getting their talking points and they know exactly what they're supposed to say. And more importantly, they know exactly what they're supposed to not say. And that's what makes them propagandists, not journalists.
And if you go to MSNBC, I will guarantee you'll never go to their webpage where less than 60% of the stories start with the word Trump. Every single MSNBC is. I went to their website right now. Trump demands new citizens clear a bar he couldn't. Former Trump voter fights back after ICE arrest. Why Trump's joke about postponing the 2020 elections wasn't funny. The problem with Trump declaring himself a hero. I mean, it's just like Trump. That's all it is. Yep. It's for, Trump just unveiled his latest tactic to rig the midterms. On and on and on. And I'm like, isn't there anything else on earth beside Trump? The only thing they have is we're the anti-Trump network. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here's the latest crazy conspiracy theory about Trump and Putin or Trump and whatever. When we complain about Trump, here's what we say. Trump's doing something I don't like, I'm going to oppose it. If Trump does something that I like, I'm going to say I like. We're about the policy, right? It's like Trump's meeting with the Ukraine about a peace deal. Well, I don't trust him, but good. He's meeting about peace. All right, now he's talking to Netanyahu. That's bad. Well, it doesn't have to be I like Trump, I hate. Screw Trump. We got policies and things we believe in. One of them is ending wars.
Yeah. And it's funny because we talk a lot about how hard our being in our space is, right? With fighting censorship every day, we have to fight censorship. We have to fight, all these different techniques of demonetizing and, shadow banning and all this stuff and trying to get our message out of real journalism, which you just spelled it out. We get to actually criticize things that need to be criticized. And we also get to acknowledge things that deserve to be acknowledged positively. We can do that. It's actually, that part is the easy part of our job. The hard part is the censorship. You know what? I got to say this. We don't say this enough. The Joe Scarboroughs and the Rachel Maddows and the Anderson Coopers, their job's actually really hard because they have to figure out ways to spin this Trump story. They have to figure out ways to spin that our military operations in Ukraine, with Israel, that they're any different than they were with Biden. They have to figure out these very complicated ways to maneuver that and continue, like you said, to make Trump the headline every day. That's got to be hard work. That's got to be exhausting. I feel bad for them in that sense that must be hard to wake up to. It should be hard for them to go to bed at night. I bet they go to bed totally cool, no conscience problems at all. But waking up in the morning must be hard because they got to go, oh shoot, this is going to be this new Ukraine one's going to be tough to spin and blame it on Trump. Yeah, okay.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. The Hollywood Reporter. Gal Gadot clarifies her comments blaming Snow White box office on Israel views. Good old former IDF genocide terrorist, in my opinion. To me, the IDF at this point, it's just a terrorist organization as far as I'm concerned. But Gal Gadot, former IDF terrorist, clarifies her comments blaming it's a Snow White. It's not the fact that they're making sucky movies. Anyway, your thoughts, Gal Gadot.
Yeah, well, Gal, she's been somebody that has really pulled the curtain back for us, and I have to give her thanks. Thank you, Gal, for exposing to us how bad it actually is here in Hollywood. How you can handpick an actual soldier, an IDF soldier who trained people in back in 2006 when they were invading Lebanon, trained them how to go in and murder people correctly in a good way while she was doing selfies. And they handpicked her. They go, oh, you'd make a good Wonder Woman. They brought her right here to Ziowood, as we call it Hollywood, but we also call it Ziowood. and we're just going to elevate you into this place of A-list stardom, and we're going to do it in less than 10 years, and then we're going to give you a star on Hollywood Boulevard. And by the way, you can't even act, and we're not going to let people are going to not be, they're going to be okay with that until they're not okay with it. And that's what happened here. So I will give her credit for that, opening up our eyes. By the way, our new channel, I got to say this, the highest watched video we have is when we covered Gal Gadot in London, her film getting shut down after the Stone White thing, and after her star on Hollywood Boulevard. People in London were furious, and they showed up in droves to make sure that they couldn't shoot these outside scenes in London. And we covered that on our show. And we got we got like almost 100,000 people watching that.
Wow.
And I think there's a reason, because she is, like I said, she is, if you're going to look at one person in this town in Hollywood to say, let's pull that curtain back on how effed up this system is, it's Gal Gadot. And then I'll say this too. I'll give her credit for this. That headline of Gal Gadot saying that there's pressure to speak out against Israel, which is, that part is completely BS. There's no pressure to speak out
in Hollywood.
But she's saying it led to Snow White flopping. There's a little speck of that's actually true. Part of the flop was that people had enough of the BS. And a lot of people didn't see that film because of that issue. There were other reasons, like you can't act, like the movie's too woke. Like there's this part about the dwarves not hiring actors, but making CGI.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why that movie flopped. But for her to pretend that there's some pressure to challenge Israel in this town is a crock of crap. And she better go take some acting classes if she wants to get taken seriously ever again. But I don't even think that'll help at this point, Garland. She is cooked. She is done because her garbage is so bad. It's so obviously bad that people around the world, not just here, people are seeing it, and they're not okay with it. And I think her legacy has already been determined at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows what she is. She is the basically the Zionist DEI. Really, what's interesting? It kills me. All these people running around saying DEI this, DEI that. Okay, look, I don't know how you put it, but personally, I can't stand the fact that every freaking bubblegum advertisement that I turn on has one black person, one white person, one Asian person, I hate that shit. I hate it, right? I don't even watch it. It makes me sick, right? Because I'm like, come on, let's just be realistic and have a movie instead of perhaps you should get the best actors and actresses. Perhaps you should say, we need really good actors and no, they don't care. Hey, we don't have an Asian person, but that guy's terrible. He can't act. Who cares? He's Asian. Throw him on there. And then we get this horse crap that we get when a movie is well written, because they just got any person because they happen to be Asian or black or gay or whatever the hell they needed for that spot. That sucks. But my point is, the people that are opposed to DEI, the Zionist people, that ain't DEI. Then I'm constantly, she's a Zionist, so we're going to put her in this movie. They can't act, so we're going to put her in this movie. We're going to put her in she's Wonder Woman, she's Snow White. And you watch the movie and like, well, she's good looking. Okay, fair enough. But she's a horrible actress. What is she doing getting paid that kind of money on an A-list, everything? And I look at her and I'm like, dude, she's really, she's just like, they just pulled somebody off the street. You know what it reminds me of? Like this idea. Let's face it, acting is a profession. It's a science, it's an art, it's all of that, right? Like I couldn't just take somebody off the street and say, I like that person. They were in the IDF. Let's put them in the NFL. Let's put them in the NBA and say, okay, go ahead. You can play power forward. No, They get like pushed off the court and dunked on every time. You can't play on that level. These people, if you ever been around people who are professional, they're unbelievable, right? They're inhuman in these sports, right?
Yeah.
And you think you can just take some IDF random Zionist soldier and give them the leading role in a movie, and they're going to be like Dustin Hoffman or one of the great? Get out of here with that. They disrespect the art.
They do.
When they take these putzes and stick them in there.
They do. And I want to go back to the acting problem that we have here, because we've talked, I mean, we've had this conversation about the scripts being all DEI'd and what's getting greenlit and what's not. And we know there's problems across the board about filmmaking right now today. It's really, really bad. But from the acting point of view, there's a part we skip over. So we're talking about Gal Gadot's horrible acting and then becoming this A-lister with a star on Hollywood Boulevard. There's other ways that the art of acting gets screwed here with DEI. And I'm going to make an example. There was I saw that this movie came up and I remembered it just from a couple years ago. It was one of the most incredible performances I saw. Brendan Fraser playing in the movie The Whale, and he won Best Actor. It was one of the few Best Actor awards we've seen in the last 5 years that actually were really deserving. It was actually he transformed. And acting's supposed to be about transforming. And you're supposed to, like you said, get the best person for that job. And audiences go out to see that person. They go out to see a transformation. That's good acting. There was a pushback from him on that. They were like, how dare you cast a guy to play a 600-pound man that isn't 600 pounds? You got to cast a 600-pound man to play a 600-pound. I'm like, wait a minute. No, that's called seeing a documentary. If I want to see a 600-pound person, I'll go watch that documentary series, whatever, that 600-pound life. If I want to see a real,
exactly.
I want to see an actual actor transforming. So the days of like an Al Pacino playing Scarface,
exactly,
is those days are long gone. Now, if you have the today's Al Pacino becoming a Cuban American, he would be not, that's not okay. You cannot do that. That is insulting. What about a Cuban actor? Why you got to get a Cuban actor in there? You're taking away a role. It's like, no, you're not taking away a role. If you give it to not Al Pacino, you don't have this iconic performance. So you're actually taking away a movie from the lexicon of great films. That's what you're doing. Or worse, you're shelving the movie and no one will ever hear about it, because you're going to have to go get somebody that doesn't have the ability to draw the investor that will invest in Al Pacino, that's not going to invest in someone else that you got off the street. And you're not going to actually see the movie. And we're going to be deprived of an incredible film. That's where we are today. And that's just the acting problem. But yeah, again, Gal Gadot not acting well at all and having a star on Hollywood Boulevard is the epitome of the problem that we see here. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not what Hollywood is anymore. We have to, we complain about it, but we have to accept the reality of what it is, right? It's something different than it used to be, because Hollywood used to be about the outcome. It was about, did we make a good movie? Now it's about the input. It's on the other side. They don't make a movie in Hollywood for me, the person who goes to see the movie. They make it for themselves. They make it so they can say, look what I did. I had the actors, and I've seen this. This movie came out recently. A series. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. So what they did was, there was Iron Man, which I thought was, I enjoyed the movie. It wasn't like a quality new movie, but it was what it was supposed to be, right? Iron Man, he flies around, he does everything. That was okay. I liked Iron Man. It was kind of a knuckle dragging movie. So they make this thing called Iron Heart.
Oh no!
And there's this black woman now who's Iron Man, and she's one. And according, they said, oh yes, we had black writers and black artists and black this, and everybody was black. And I'm like, I'm watching a movie. I don't know what color the people, the best boy grip or whatever the hell, I don't know what color those people are. I don't need to know. I'm watching a show and I want to see it. And I look at it and I'm like, that has to be the worst piece of crap I've ever seen in my life. And they're like, but here's the reality. They didn't do all of that and make sure the writers and this person and everybody was, but they didn't do that to create this show so that people would enjoy the show. They did it so they could all say, look at me. I'm moral. I'm right. I'm good. I'd stand up for this group of people. I don't care if they know what the hell they're doing or not. I don't care if they know how to make a movie, write, act, who cares? They're all black people. Look at me, I'm standing up for the black. And I'm like, this is pathetic. And then you end up with something that nobody will watch.
Yeah. No, that's a great. I saw that trailer and I was like, oh my
God,
they're really doing this. I don't think the comic when it came out was very popular at all, and it was a very late addition to it's not this like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and like the DC, like the best stories are the ones they pull from like the back years that have been ingrained in us like for years and years. But when they create these characters out of thin air and then pretend they've been around forever, that's a little deceiving because you're not. That's not like you mentioned Iron Man. Iron Man's been around since 1960. This is the original Avengers, the original Stan Lee stories, and you know that film I think you're mentioning. I mean, yeah, that was a pretty good film. That was like in 2008. That kickstarted the Marvel Universe. Yeah. Now you have these like they're doing these kind of little switch outs and trying to see if you notice. Oh, Ironheart's been around forever. No, I don't think Ironheart. The character didn't exist until 2016. So this was right on the cusp of we talk about this new. It's like people ask like, when did this occurrence happen? When did Hollywood become woke? When did the word woke become ingrained? I think it was right around 2016. If I could go on a timeline, it was very gradual. It didn't just happen overnight, but there was this gradual transition. You had the Me Too movement, 2017. So you had these things that kind of put us in our place to say there's things you're not allowed to be upset about anymore. You have to be happy. You have to be happy that this Ironheart hero exists, and and it's just as popular as Iron Man. No, it's not. No, it's not. So okay, let's see if anyone sees this thing. But I'm with you. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Another DEI checklist. That's where we're at. But I think that I think that maybe it'll change. Maybe we're right at the end of this. I don't know. I like to be a little optimistic that maybe it's run its course. The DEI thing will start to gradually fall off a little bit. I don't know, but this has been a hard time to live through for sure. As a creative, as somebody who we like good stories, we like good storytelling that pushes limits, that doesn't check boxes. But I hope we can come back to that one day. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Hollywood had movies that you could read different things about. There was a movie called The Watermelon Man. You ever heard of that? Where it was a white guy it was like in the early 70s, and he was a white guy who was really racist, and then he woke up one day and he was black, right? Mm. But so Hollywood did make movies that address social issues, right?
Yeah.
But not in this corny ass way that they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not this corny ass unreal crap that they do. They did that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. In Living Color, did all kinds of race and stuff, but they had fun with it, right? Yeah. Now it's this arrogant, the liberals, we are more moral than you are, and therefore look what we're doing. We have all women writers or something. You're like, your product sucks. Anyway, let us continue on with our next thingy. There's something kind of freaking me out. Trump team starts off with this. Yes, I snipped this out years ago when he first started. Yes, it's time for us to take a military action against the cartels in Mexico. And I thought, yeah, but you don't like the idea that the Mexicans are nationalizing like the electrical grid. They started nationalizing all this stuff, kind of going to the left, which is their right. It's their country. And they're like, shouldn't be doing that. And, we might have to use military to go after the cartels. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the cartels. All right. They want to overthrow the damn government. So now here's the latest. They start off by saying, yes, now Maduro all of a sudden is a drug kingpin. Just out of the blue, we've decided that he leads the cartels and he's a drug kingpin. And by the way, we might have to use military to go after cartels. And let's send a bunch of destroyers to Venezuela so we can start a war. That you're like, come on. They're always looking to start another war, and it looks like they're ready to start one. Somebody put a good point. The cartels work for the CIA. Exactly. Yeah. History tells us that the CIA is involved in they're the biggest drug cartel on earth. Anyway, your thoughts on this horrifying thing about Venezuela?
Yeah, no, this is by design. This is the whole point. It's the more of the occupation and the infiltration of Latin countries all around. Like we've seen this thing specifically in Venezuela, we've seen our American imperialism affect this country for years and years. We know that the previous president Chavez, we know, he'd been giving away oil for free. You can't do that. We have to stop you. But like this idea that Maduro is this like illegitimate president, this part isn't new, Garland. They've been saying that this has been years and years of this crap. This was, I mean, if we can, people remember, Trump first getting into office, he made his, I guess it was his 2020 speech, State of the Union, where he said Maduro was not legitimate, and he brought in who he said at the time, I believe it was
Juan Guaido.
It was Guaido. He brought him in, and and people don't know this, or they forget because the media doesn't tell you this part. They like to play you the clip of Nancy Pelosi's iconic ripping up the speech, which happened that same day. That was January 2020. She's ripping up his speech for that little moment of theater. Meanwhile, the entire room gives a standing ovation to Juan Guaido, and that was a sign of complete bipartisan support for the American imperialism we were doing in Venezuela. And they've been trying to put coups on Maduro ever since. Now we're talking about this $50 million bounty that is put on him right now. So this is not anything new, but this is something that both parties have been for. Nobody's calling out Trump and saying he's being extra Trumpy for this. This is what our policy is, and both parties have been doing this the whole time. And this should be a red flag for anybody who still thinks that there's some sort of difference between a Democratic administration and Republican administration when it comes to how we handle countries like Venezuela.
Exactly. And here's the thing. What kind of idiot doesn't look at Venezuela and say, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves of any country on earth. Yep. And conveniently, they say, we're going after the cartels. Where? Mexico? Nah. Colombia? Nah. Oh, the cocaine comes out of Peru. No, not interested. Where are you going? Venezuela. But that's not where all the drugs come out of. Yeah, but that's where all the oil is. I would disagree with any of it. But the reality is they're giant drug cartels that are mixing a lot of chemicals and selling a lot of drugs in the U.S., in Mexico. It is what it is. We could talk about why and the reason and supply and addiction and all of those things and how the CIA is involved. Cocaine, Peru, Colombia, a lot of cocaine. Yes, okay, we can talk about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But they ain't coming out of Venezuela. Isn't it convenient that the place they ain't coming out of and the place that happens to have lots of oil is the only place you need to go?
Yeah. No, it's amazing to me that Venezuela has survived all of these attacks and all this like infiltration by the CIA and all this like I mentioned the coup attempts on Maduro and Chavez previously, but it's like even just now I saw that Pam Bondi announces like with total glee. Yeah, we seized about $700 million of in assets just now from the head of state Venezuela. You did that, like, and Maduro just has to keep going like that didn't happen. Like oh, I'm cool with that. Like this is the kind of bullying and aggressive military and we call it, this is part of the imperialism method, is that we just continue to push and push and push until they completely collapse. I can tell you firsthand that Venezuela has been on the verge of collapse 100% due to American imperialism, not the system they run. The system they run isn't perfect. We do know that there's corruption going on. I understand that personally because I've been there. We actually did a documentary back in 2017 called Tupamaro. And if you can actually see it on Amazon Prime. We produced this. We had Ed Asner at the time before he passed away. He was an executive producer of the film, always big on doing rights, human rights for Latin American countries. But in this particular case, the Tupamaros are actually a group that helped the Chavez and then Maduro administrations basically do what the police couldn't do. And what they went around and did is they actually got drugs out of the street. So I just want to say that's a really interesting thing. And the Tupamaros, people don't even know this, they don't talk about these guys, but they had originated in Uruguay. They then went to El Salvador and ended up in Caracas. At one point, Caracas being the largest, number one, dangerous city in the world, as they said at one point. But the Tupamaros, even though they have their little politics and they have their little issues with their factions, their job was to clean the streets of drugs. Meanwhile, you got the CIA planting drugs. You got these are not Trump administration, but Biden administration, all the administrations using the CIA to take violent people out of the streets of Venezuela, bring them purposely into our country. So then Trump can turn around and say, we got 99 Venezuelan street thugs. Let's ship them to El Salvador. So the whole thing's this entire theater piece to make it look like that we're being bombarded. We're the ones in trouble because these other countries want to come in and hurt us when we are the ones doing it. We are creating the controversy. We're creating the dangerous situation. So the American people will be on board for these hardcore policies that take away rights from people, starting with people who don't have citizenship and then going to people that do, putting everyone in super prisons if you don't like them. That's the game. And so here we are. And you got this, you got the bounty on Maduro, and you got all these, I guess, Marines ready to start a ground invasion right now. And I guess we're all supposed to be okay with this and think, oh, this is a great, what a great move by Trump, because we have to make sure that this horrible drug cartel of administration that's not legit doesn't do any more damage to our country. But again, it's all by design, and we designed it.
And here's the thing. The United States sanctioned away 99% of Venezuela's oil profits and then said, well, they've got a corrupt government. They don't even know how to manage their money. But there was only 1% left, 99%. The U.S. did sanction them into nothingness and then said, oh, well, they're corrupt. First of all, the idea that Venezuela is more corrupt than the United States government. Well, let's check Nancy Pelosi's stock options and see what she has to say about corruption in the government, number one. Number two, drug cartels. Sure. Ask the snowman Zelensky, who's in charge of the most corrupt country on earth. You know what I mean? This guy's in charge of a terrorist Nazi organization, and he's like Scarface. Let me show you my little friend. A bag of flour in his face. Get out of here with that. The idea that the United States government, if they were concerned about corruption, they'd have looked into Hunter Biden. They'd have looked into the Clinton initiative or whatever it was that stole $1 billion from Haiti. I mean, I need to go. What a joke. Yeah. How naive and stupid could anybody be to believe that the United States is going after the country with more oil than any other country on earth because they're concerned about corruption and drugs? You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. I mean, it's all there for us to see. If people still don't want to look at it and see what's really going on, Venezuela is a perfect example of what we're saying. It's a bipartisan policy of military might. We've been doing it for years. Trump is not unique in this situation, although I guess MSNBC has to figure out a way to spin it like Trump is doing something uniquely evil. But the reality is, this is the policy both administrations have been doing for a long time. It's the main problem with how we got our border crisis is the CIA doing these horrible acts around Latin America countries. And this is why we're where we are now. And so if you can't see it, and we don't, then I don't know when we're going to see it if we can't see it right here, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And on to the next thing. Here's an interesting article. Congressional lawmakers will get their hands on a first tranche of Epstein files in the coming days. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said in a statement the Justice Department will start turn over Jeffrey Epstein related materials, blah, blah, blah. Apparently there's just been a ruling today. My understanding is, watch this ruling. Let me find it. Let me find it. 1 second. Best day news. Oops. Here we go. A federal judge on Wednesday rejected the Justice Department's efforts to unseal grand jury transcripts and exhibits in the Jeffrey Epstein case, writing that the government itself is the logical party to make the Epstein files public and criticizing the motion as a diversion tactics. So the federal judge, 03, they don't, sorry, you can't unseal the Jeffrey Epstein grand jury materials. So what a shock. The government is saying, no, we can't see the government's involvement in child trafficking and pedophilia for blackmail and international espionage and things of that nature. Nah, it's not important. We don't need to see that, man.
This is so this they just announced that it's not actually going to be coming out on. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
We just
Yeah, that's just today at
Oh, wow.
2:34 p.m. What's the date of today? It's the 20th, 2:34 p.m. A federal judge rejected the Justice Department's effort to unseal grand jury transcripts and exhibits. So the grand jury ain't coming out of it, not doing it.
That was fast. I actually thought there was going to be at least something, just a little tease this Friday. I guess was supposed to be just a little bit, just to make some of the MAGAs and some of the people feel like, we're getting there, right? A little bit at a time, But that's not. No, you're absolutely. I mean, for this to come out
now, listen to this.
Yeah,
the justice opinion, however, comes as the Justice Department is being forced to disclose the Epstein files through another channel. On Friday, the department is expected to begin turning over Epstein-related documents to congressional lawmakers in response to a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee. I want to say one thing, though. They're handing over 100,000 pages of Epstein materials. But let me throw this at you. Again, it's all a diversion. Let me tell you why. People did not ask for Epstein files, and they didn't ask for Epstein-related materials. They said, we want to see the names of the perpetrators of these crimes. Oh, well, we'll give you, how about we give you transcripts from the grand juries? No, we don't want transcripts. And so people said the Epstein list. That's what they said. What is that? There's like 220 or so different investigations where they interviewed victims, like the young girls or whoever, and said, what happened? And the young girl said, this happened to me, and this is who did it. So they got the names. All you got to do is go through those and pull the names. Now, the first question is, if you've got accusations against these names that they committed felonies, why is it that you didn't start a criminal investigation against every one of them immediately? But that being said, they'll tell me you don't have the names. So we ask them for the Epstein list. We want to know the names of all these people that are accused. And what do they say? Well, maybe we'll give you the Epstein file or Epstein-related material. You're ducking and dodging. And you're going to give me something that I didn't ask for. All right, here's a picture of somebody who once talked to Epstein on a Thursday who said that Epstein had size 11 and a half feet. There you go. We gave you the Epstein-related material. Bullshit. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, look, I agree with you 100% on this, Garland. I mean, we're never going to see this. This is this little dance across the aisle. It's a distraction. You're 100% right. Everybody's staying in their tribes, and you got this ridiculous tribe in the Democratic side saying, oh, Trump uniquely doesn't want this out, but we're going to fight to get it out. No, you're not. No, you're not. None of them want it out. It's never going to come out. And what is it? Like you said, what is the it? What are we talking about here? What are the files? They're acting as if, we saw Pam Bondi do that shift where she's like, why do you guys keep bugging me to see porn? That's all it is porn. That's weird that you want to see that. No, that's not what it was months ago. It was supposed to be incriminating files of horrible things going on. We don't want to see the actual footage. We just want to know that it exists and people have been identified. That's the idea. And like you said, like the people that have been identified that committed crimes, we want to know who those people are. That's the list we want. We're not going to see that list. It's going to, if that actual list came out, if the actual information of the crimes that were committed came out, the entire global system of world leaders would completely crumble. So this is not a unique issue of Trump's administration. Again, back to the whole Trump's administration. No, this is the powers above that don't want us to talk about Epstein being an actual agent of the Mossad. We'll never have that actual conversation for real. Pam Bondi said, I'll get back to you with that one. No, you won't. She won't get back to us. But we do have these subpoenas. I did think this was interesting.
Okay.
Because we saw the list of subpoenas come out. And I don't know, when you're subpoenaed, can they cancel these dates? Can these the first one on the list, when I remember this came out a couple of weeks ago, we had, Bill and Hillary are on it. They're on it for like October. You got like October 9th. Hillary Clinton is supposed to be in court for this. I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't, doesn't make a difference. You might walk in and walk out. It might just be theater. Bill Clinton, a week later, is supposed to go in on October 14th. But the first one, I think it already passed. We had an August 18th date for Bill Barr. And I'm trying to figure out if that actually happened or if it was something that they did in writing. What was it, an actual show up? What if you do show up to a subpoena? Does anything even happen? Is it just going through the motions? Nothing actually gets accomplished. So I don't know. Again, this is just probably more to add to the theater. And like you said, which is really the real topic at hand here, Garland, is what you're saying. It's a big distraction. It keeps us all with popcorn in our hand, in our laps, and waiting for the next thing to break, and keeps us in our tribe and not looking at the full picture of what's happening that the mainstream is not reporting on.
Exactly. Here's what they don't want us to say. Exactly what you said. Our government was involved, the CIA and the Mossad, probably in all likelihood, MI6 at least, with child trafficking, pedophilia, blackmail, all these terrible things, using our money in our name. Number one. Number two, and this is big, and this is why another reason they can never do it. Explain to me, I'm former law enforcement, right? I'm former law enforcement. Some guy comes into me, I interview some girl for whatever, young woman. And she says, well, Garland, Joe Blow over there sexually assaulted me, and he did this and that and that and this. And I say, okay. And then afterwards, I just put the file away. I don't say, we got a serious allegation here. I'm going to fill out, the paperwork, and we're going to start an investigation. Someone has come to a law enforcement official and made an accusation that a sexual assault and a felony occurred. At that point, I have a duty to investigate that.
Yeah.
So there's an obvious question. Literally hundreds of felonies were reported directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, which means that's DOJ. Yeah. Did the FBI go to their bosses at the DOJ and the AG's office and say, we have allegations of sexual assaults against many, many people. We gotta open investigations against them. Did they just not do it? What happened? So the FBI is exposed. The government is exposed. At this point, our government is involved in deliberate criminal activity, felonious activity. The FBI is involved with covering it up. You know what I mean? And on and on and on. And the truth comes out that we got a criminal government.
Yeah. We said when Pam Bondi broke the news that Epstein actually killed himself after all, and there are no files. On that day, we knew that was going to be a very significant moment that we're going to be looking back on for a long time, and we're going to say that's the moment where a lot of MAGA realized that they were being played, and they're not going to forget that. That's good. There's nothing Trump can say. There's no subpoena. There's no, oh, we're going to get some files on Friday. Oh no, we're not. There's nothing that can happen from this point on that doesn't change the minds of a lot of MAGAs that saw their president, looked them in the eye, and said, you're not seeing what you think you're seeing because the Democrats made it up. And these people that came out in droves to vote for Trump, they did it for the children. A lot of people voted for Trump for the children. A lot of those people went and saw the movie Sound of Freedom for the children. And guess what? The Democrats didn't want you to see that movie. They told you were a QAnon conspiracy theorist. So I want people to remember that. And if you're a Democrat, and if you're in here in Hollywood, this should also be an eye-opener for you. Your party is being accused by the current president of making up the Epstein files. Well, you know better. You know that your party did not make up anything. Your party had a president for 4 years that didn't do anything with the Epstein list. There was your chance. So for you to believe that, for anyone to believe that, I don't know what to tell you at this point, but enough people do see it now. And I think that will be a moment, and I still will double down on that. I think we're going to remember that, well, amongst other moments, but I think it's going to be one of the top three that we go, that's where he lost them. That's where the curtain was revealed. And I don't think you can go back into that mindset anymore. I'm actually interested in how we're going to play out to the next election cycle. What happens to these MAGAs? They're not going back to the Democratic Party, I can tell you that. But where are they going to go? Are they going to understand now, finally, that we are in a system that's corrupt, that both sides are captured? It's the same. It's a duopoly. It's a uniparty. And we're done with it. There's no red. There's no blue that will change our mind. There's no Bernie Sanders. There's no Obama. No AOC. There's no Trump. No one's going to change our mind about it. No RFK Jr. either, by the way. No one's going to change our mind about this. So I think that could be a good thing. And I think that we will look back at this. This could be a moment of waking up for reals. Like, I do believe that. That's the silver lining here.
I think it is. And I think what's important, even looking at it now, right? So the Democrats are like, yes, Trump's name is on the list. And he does, oh, wait, whoa. Epstein died in 2019. Joe Biden and the Democrats had 4 freaking years. Never crossed his mind. Never crossed the Democrats' mind to release the A list, the list of Epstein people. Now that Trump gets in, Trump won't release the list. You know what? If Trump were to say, here's what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over to the Democratic Party. Let them vote. If they vote to do that, no Republicans are going to vote. We're going to give the Democrats in the House and the Senate, we're going to give them the vote. In fact, we're going to give them the list. Here's the list of everybody on there. Democrats, do what you want with it. If you want, there's a fire there, and there's an email or website there. You can either scan it into the website so everybody can see the list, or you can throw it in the fire. It's yours. What do you want to do? They throw it in the fire.
Yep.
It's not that Democrats and Republicans are on the list. That ain't the issue. The owners of Democrats and Republicans are on the list. The people who own those bastards, that's who's on the list. So they can't say it because their owners, their funders are on the list.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Those 4 years were it. So for people now to think that, oh, they do it if their hands weren't tied because Trump's in Emperor Trump's in charge, so we can't do anything. No. So that's why Trump won't be doing that, because that's going to be a real giveaway. And then he can't stand on that claim that the Democrats are the ones who made this up and it's their fault. And that's one of the biggest lies. I mean, he's told a lot of lies, but that's, I think, one of the biggest lies he's told his own base throughout this, because that doesn't make any sense. How are you telling us the Democrats made this up? That makes no sense. There's nothing there. There's no paper trail of that. That's not a thing. So I hope that the MAGAs don't have short-term memories on this, and we can continue to double down on this moving forward. But that's where we are. And make no mistake, we ain't getting those files. We ain't getting those names. No one's going to jail. That's not happening. It's over.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say for those who never saw that, do you remember a guy? I think his name was Ryan, Ralph, or Ruth, or whatever. The guy that's tried to shoot Trump or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
On the 5th hole. I don't know if you saw the last, and I don't know if people saw the last thing that happened. Judge Cannon reportedly sealed evidence in Trump an assassination case, citing grave threat to national security. What's being hidden? Okay. The man charged as Ryan Ruth. He was blah, blah, blah. They say set up a sniper position. The United States motion and all the company materials are hereby sealed and remain preserved in custody of classified information security officer. Bottom line is this. The evidence apparently in his case has been sealed because it cites a grave threat to national security.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're like, and we're not supposed to be suspicious. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. But here, I'm just sit here and say, so this guy, we're told he's trying to assassinate the president. I don't know if he was or wasn't. That's what we're told. That's the story. He's trying to assassinate the president. Okay. And that he's a lone gunman or whatever. All righty. Whatever. And he was involved in Ukraine running mercenaries or whatever. Fair enough. This is what I've heard. All right. The trial's going on. What's happening? I haven't even heard his name. Or what's the guy's name from New York that shot the CEO guy? He's disappeared. We'll
Luigi.
Never hear his name again. That's gone. He's done. He's wherever he's with the Scripples. You know what I mean? Probably never be seen again. But my point being, so I'm supposed to see you, watch this on TV, and then they're going to tell me, oh yeah, We're doing a trial on this guy, but nobody can ever see the information because it's a grave threat to national security. And I'm not supposed to be suspicious that you're up to frickin' no good as always.
Yeah, no, this reminds me of, and we've seen this time and time again. This reminds me of Seth Rich, right? We can't see what's in the laptop. Seth Rich, it's national security issue. It's like you can't. No, we have to. We have a right to have this information as the public. It's actually the opposite, right? It's in our interest that we know that there's transparency. That will ultimately help our national security. But the way they can get away with this is they say, no, we can't have a crack in the armor. We can't see the shady stuff we're doing to our own within our own system, because if the American people are exposed to that, they're going to get suspicious enough and rise up, and our system's going to crumble. That's what they mean by a threat to our national security. Same with Snowden. Same with Assange releasing it. Oh no, we can't see war crimes that Julian Assange had on WikiLeaks. That compromises our. No, it's information we need to have. But that's, again, I think we've been trained for this. There's enough people in this country that believe that is true, that's a true statement, and they're okay with that. We need more of us getting upset about this. And I mentioned Seth Rich because I think that was the last time for a lot of former Democrats, progressive, as we still think of ourselves as, that we have progressive ideals, but we don't have a party. But I think that was the last time that we tiptoed. That was the last time when the Seth Rich incident happened, 2016, 2017. It was the last time we were like, oh, I guess if I did suggest that there was something, to do with Hillary Clinton and the DNC, it would be dangerous for me to do that. So I will watch my words because I don't want to be dangerous. That was the last time I think we fell for that. We're not falling for that anymore. We need more people to see it right now in this issue. That why can't we know about this assassin attempt? Why can't we know about this information? It's not a threat to our security. We want to know what happened, and we don't want you sweeping it under the rug anymore. We're going to continue shouting about it without fear that we're doing that our words are violence and they're dangerous. No, we're not going to fall for that anymore.
Yeah, I knew when the Seth Rich murder happened and people started asking questions, and it was like, you better not say anything about Seth Rich. But if you remember when that happened, man, if it was Twitter or Facebook or whatever, if you posted an article about Seth Rich, any article about Seth Rich on Facebook, you would get suspended.
Yeah.
Suspended. Any article, if the word Seth Rich, they had it like in their algorithm. If you put up the word Seth Rich, you were going to get suspended. You were going to lose your Twitter, all of that stuff. And I knew when they were like, you cannot talk about Seth Rich, I said, well, that is settled that he was the leaker. At that point, I'm like, he was the DNC leaker, and they killed him because he was the DNC leaker. How do I know? You can't say his name. If you can't say somebody's name, then that confirms any suspicion that you had can be confirmed when they say you can't talk about that. Yeah. Anyway, tell everybody where they can find you online.
Oh, you can find me on the channel, The Homeless Left. We're on Rumble. You can follow us on Twitter, me, Matt Weinglass on Twitter, and then you mentioned our channel on YouTube. It's our burner channel. It's our new channel because The Homeless Left got taken down. It's terminated. So the new channel is right below my name there. It's THL Presents, and we've been doing pretty good. We started it up at the beginning of this year, and it's doing pretty well. So we appreciate any engagement on there. We're going to be on. We pick up the shows again tomorrow, Thursday. We have Gerard Salente coming on.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Pasta. Yeah, it's a great show we have planned tomorrow, and we're on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons every week. So yeah, follow us on YouTube and on Rumble as well.
All right, everybody. Matt Weinglass, great addition to our show, and make sure you watch all of his good stuff. Once again, follow me on Telegram and Rumble and Rockfin and all that kind of stuff. If you can afford it, you can see everything going down Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, whatever. There's my P.O. box that's scrolling across the bottom. If you want to mail anything over to the P.O. box, I get all kinds of interesting letters, and I've gotten books. I just got a book recently, all kinds of great stuff. I'm glad I got the P.O. box. But the most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.